Hey, it's me, and we're here today to start the book of Jeremiah. But a couple of things that I wanted to say first. I'm so excited, and I've been a little overwhelmed. I think I've turned this project into trying to know, like, I want to do it perfect and I want to do it right. And so I was trying to read everything and then reread it and then read it in the MacArthur Bible and reread it in different commentaries. And I'm not a biblical scholar. And the whole purpose of this that I felt God was asking me or calling me to do was to read through the Bible like a normal person, talk about my reading, what I read, what stuck with me, what I didn't understand. And so, yeah, I feel like the Lord has kind of said, hey, you're trying to do this a whole nother way than what I meant. And so I am going to share some things that I learned and read this first part of Jeremiah. I have read through almost the whole book as our schedule says. But I have not made the videos because, to be honest, I was trying to make it perfect, and I'm not. And so the next videos from here on out will be a little different, not as like a Wednesday night Bible study kind of videos, but just a girl talking. And hopefully you'll leave comments and or questions, or if you learn something, we can all kind of learn together, because that is the purpose. So anyway, Jeremiah, some things that I learned. I've got my little notes here. He was a priest and a prophet. He was the son of a priest, Hilkiah. That's how you say it. He remained unmarried as a lesson to Judah, the nation. He was assisted by a scribe named Baruch, who wrote his stuff. He was known as the weeping prophet because he was predicting the destruction from Babylon, and he cried a lot. He was threatened. He was tried for his life. He was put in stocks. He was forced to flee. He was humiliated, and he was thrown into a pit. He begged for Judah to repent, and you'll see that in so many sections of Jeremiah that I have read so far. He was there 5 decades. 627 BC, King Josiah's 13th year is when it kind of started, and Babylon's conquering was done in 586 BC, and so in that range is where he was the prophet. He was possibly taken captive in Babylon, but we don't really know 100% for sure. One thing I did not know is that Jeremiah matches the stories in 2 Kings 22 through 25 and 2 Chronicles 34 through 36. And so a lot of the history of where Jeremiah is crying out and what's going on happens, and you can read about it in that. The final 5 kings heard his prophecies. And that's amazing to me at how they didn't change or repent in their time. During his time, lots of idol worship and even child sacrifice to Molech as one of the false gods. His main theme is judgment on Judah. And one thing I did learn, and it drives me nuts, is that he does not write his book chronologically, or his book is not put together chronologically. And so at times it's confusing because it kind of jumps from future to past and then present. And then, so anyway, it's kind of all over the place. But those are Jeremiah's background notes. And I will do that for the books when we do that. But one thing in Jeremiah, when it starts out, in verse 1, he talks that he is the son of Hilkiah. And he starts during the 13th year of the reign of Josiah. If you'll go down to verse 9, this struck me for all it's worth, and this has become a prayer of mine. It says, "Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and told me, I have now filled your mouth with my words." And I just thought, what a verse to pray, that God would fill our mouths with his words. And I know Jeremiah is a prophet, and we're here, and I'm not a prophet, but I see people all day, and I can guarantee you that the words that come out of my mouth are not always from God. So I just thought that's a really neat way to pray and a cool prayer to pray. In Jeremiah, that right there, that whole chapter 1 down into 2, he's talking about an almond tree. And almond tree was known as the wakeful tree. I thought that was kind of cool because it wakes up before all the others. And so that means that the Babylonian judgment would come early. And I thought that was a neat symbolism. In verse 13 of chapter 2, he says, "For my people have committed double evil. They have abandoned me, the fountain of living water, and dug cisterns for themselves, cracked cisterns that cannot hold water." And I thought, how that struck me, just how he just wants his people back, but we keep digging our own wells that aren't going to hold water, and we just keep digging and digging and digging. And there is only one living water, and humanity just does not seem to grasp that concept. That stuck out to me. And then in verse, in chapter 2, if you go down to verse 30, he says, "I have struck down your children in vain. They would not accept discipline." And I stopped there because I know that God disciplines those he loves, and that comes from the New Testament. And I did not look up what verse that was. I should have. But so many times we think that there's something in our lives that's going on because of some circumstance or whatever, but sometimes it's because God is disciplining us and trying to tell us, hey, this is wrong and we need to go this way. Just like a dad. He's our dad. We cry out, Abba, Father, Abba, Daddy, help us. And so he's going to discipline us at times. Chapter 3, one of the things he goes through lots of different things, but when you get down to verse 11, this was a cry. This is, "The Lord announced to me, unfaithful Israel has shown herself more righteous and treacherous than Judah. Go proclaim these words to the north." He says, "Return, unfaithful Israel. I will not look on you with anger, for I am unfailing in my love. This is the Lord's declaration. I will not be angry forever." Only acknowledge your guilt. And then he keeps going, and in 14 it says, "Return. This is the Lord's declaration, for I am your master, and I will make you from a city and two from a family, and I will bring you to Zion. I will give you shepherds who are loyal to me, and they will shepherd you with knowledge and skill." How awesome is it that God says, just return to me. I'm not going to be mad at you forever. And I hear him in my life say that all the time. If you just come back and listen, come back to the closet and sit down and just hear me out. These are the things I have for you. And he has all kinds of verses of how he loves us and what he will do. And I just wish we would return. And I pray that for the church. I pray that for our nation, the world, and myself mainly, because I get so stuck in my everyday route of wanting this or wanting that or trying to do this, trying to do that. And so many times I'm doing it in my own power. 19, he says, "I thought you will call me Father and never turn away from me." And how God is he's a faithful God. In chapter 4, verse 4, it says, "Circumcise yourselves to the Lord, remove the foreskins of your hearts." And that right there, I did look up that, and that verbiage meant to circumcise on the inside, take away the fleshly things, take away the things that are unholy, and just rip them off, just remove them from our hearts so that we can focus on the godly things. I need to do that. I haven't been doing a faithful job in this video thing that he's called me to do because I've been scared. It's not really that great. But I'm not in charge of that. I mean, I'm doing the best I can or doing what I know, but I mean, he's God. And if he's told me to do it, no matter what, I'm supposed to do it. And so I just look at that, and that verse was like, "Circumcise yourself, the Lord, remove the foreskins of your hearts." Like, I'm not supposed to worry about anything worldly in doing this. It's God. And that's the same thing in our lives. In verse 14, he says, "Wash the evil from your heart, Jerusalem, so that you will be delivered. How long will you harbor malicious thoughts? He begged to keep them from destruction, but they would not repent. And there's so many times I know that I make choices that I should not make. And, getting angry here, being impatient there. And he's just like, just stop. Just come to me. But we don't always do that, do we? And then in chapter 5, I thought it was interesting. I was a little confused in chapter 5 with the things that were said. A lot of who questions. And then verse 18 in chapter 5 says, but in those days, this is the Lord's declaration, I will not finish you off. That's the remnant that the Lord promises to leave of his people during the Babylon captivity. But it's still beautiful. And in Isaiah 6:9, and in Jesus, Matthew 13:13, he talks about false professors as branches. And in this whole chapter 5, you'll see the branches talking about pruning away her shoots. They don't belong to the Lord. Prophets will, be bad, wrong. And so that all, I thought it was cool how it all ties together. And at the end of chapter 5, he says, my people love it like this, but what will you do at the end of it? I had a question. Who's asking that? And what exactly does it mean? I know that it's saying that all are guilty, but it has that, I don't understand who's asking part. And we'll talk more about Jeremiah and the weeping side of him, but he cries a lot and he's sad. And I think no wonder he's sad all the time, because God is using him as a vessel to show us how God felt, because his people had turned away and were worshiping idols. And if you look around, we're doing the same thing. And so I wonder how many of us as Christians have heavy hearts for those that are walking away and when we worship idols. Because y'all, you can build an idol out of anything. You can build an idol out of money. We know that. You can build an idol out of your children and doing everything for them. You can build an idol out of your work. We can build all kinds of idols. I know that we don't go forming golden calves much anymore. I don't know, maybe you have one, I don't know. But our idols come in the forms of different ways when we worship something that is other than God and put things before God. So my prayer is that as we read through the rest of Jeremiah, as most of us are probably already finished, but as we talk through it, that we see the heaviness of his heart and pray for our body of believers and our country as well, that the heaviness of heart there will produce fruit for revival and bring people back to him. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Happy Saturday, and we will finish Jeremiah soon. I'm going to kind of try to make these videos short and close together so that we can do that. And I will also be posting a schedule of our reading. We will be getting out of Jeremiah very shortly here, and we will see where we go next. It's the next book. I wonder if you can guess it. All right. I love y'all. Have a great day. See you later. Bye.